Okay. All right, so let's go to your next empty page, and I want you to write this on your next empty page. Put x plus 3. Okay, using a vocabulary word, what is this? X plus 3. Annika.
It is a numeral, wait, no, it's an algebraic expression.
It's an algebraic expression, exactly. Okay, what we've been studying since we started this chapter, algebraic expression. All right, so now we're going to do this to it. Okay, so now we have changed it from an algebraic expression, we now have an equation. Okay, and if you'll underline the beginning of the word equation. Okay, so equation is just you take an algebraic expression, you give it an equal sign, therefore equation, and an answer, and it's now an equation. So we switched it from an algebraic expression to an equation. Okay, now this is a simple equation. It's easy to look at this and say, oh, I know the answer is 7. Okay, but that's not the point. The point is learning how to solve an equation, and that's what we're going to look at today. And so I'm going to start by putting, and so you can just put your pencil down for a second, and we're gonna look over here, and then in a minute we're going to come back to your composition book. But this is, I'm going to put an equation up here, and I'm going to show you what you do to solve an equation. So while I'm putting this up here, one of the things that you need to know to be able to solve equations is you need to know the opposite operations. So what would be the opposite of addition? Annika? Subtraction. And so therefore, Annika, what would be the opposite of subtraction?
Addition.
Right, addition and subtraction are opposites, exactly. Okay, what about the opposite of multiplication? What's the opposite of multiplication? What reverses multiplication? Macy? Dividing. And dividing and multiplication. Okay, so addition and subtraction are opposites, and multiplication and division are opposites. All right, so when you're solving an equation, and this is an easy equation, but again, as you get older, they'll get harder and harder, but you'll solve them the same way. In an equation, you want the variable by itself. Okay, so you want the variable all by itself on this side of the equal sign. You don't want anything else there with it. So what happens is these two things, so we have k minus 7 equals 8. This has got to go to the other side because we want the k by itself. But in order to move it to the other side, the opposite thing has to happen. So it's got to become a plus. Okay, and then all you do is solve k equals 8 plus 7. And so what would our k be? Lucas? 15. Okay, so that's your middle step. Your middle step is you want the variable by itself. In order to move everything over, you have to do the opposite. Okay, so let's try another one. And we'll do this in your composition book in a minute, but not right now. Right now, just watch. And we'll put some of these in your composition book in a minute. And this is just a one-step equation. We're going to do two-step equations this year, and you'll do ones that have more steps than that later. But for right now, we're just going to focus on this. Okay, so we're going to have m plus 1, equals 4. Okay, so remember we want the m by itself. Okay, we want the m by itself. Okay, so this plus 1 is going to have to come to the other side. Okay, so what's going to happen when I bring this plus 1 over? If I want to bring it over to the side, what's going to happen to it, Lucas?
You're going to add 1.
It's being added right now. It was added over here. I'm bringing it to the other side. So what's going to happen? Hannah?
You have to flip it to subtract.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got to subtract 1. So it comes to the other side. And so our problem was really m equals 4 minus 1. And so what would we get for our m? Monica? 3. Yeah. Okay. If you're multiplying and you bring it to the other side, you're going to divide. And if you're dividing and you bring it to the other side, you're going to multiply. So let's put an example in your composition book we're gonna put an example of a one step, then we'll go to your whiteboard and do some one step, and then we'll look at how to do some two-step equations. So let's go back to your composition book. Okay, let's try this one. Let's put k minus 4 equals 11. Okay, that's going to be our example, and you can put one step if you want to. So this is a one-step equation, okay, because it only has one step in the middle. All right, so again, we want the k by itself. This minus 4, we don't want it there, so it's got to come to the other side. Okay, so our middle step is going to be k equals 11, because the 11 is going to stay where it is. And then what happens when I bring that minus 4 when it comes to the other side? What's going to happen to it, Hannah?
You add.
Exactly. This is my middle step. That's why it's called a one-step equation. I have one step in the middle. Then all I do is solve 11 plus 4. So what do I get when I add 11 plus 4? Monica? 15. Okay, so let's go to your whiteboard and try some one-step equations. And we'll come back and put an example of a two-step, and we'll try some two-step equations. So let's go to your whiteboard and try some one-step equations. Okay. If it's an emergency, you had a while before we started to go to the bathroom, but if it's an emergency.
I had to go to the dentist before, so.
Okay, 8t equals 56. Okay, 8t equals 56. So we know that 8t means 8 times t. So our middle step is going to be t equals 56. And since it was being multiplied, what's going to happen when I take it to the other side? We're going to divide it. So our middle step is 56 divided by 8. And then we solve. So what would our final step be, Annika? T equals 7. Okay, so that's what you would put, like if you were on your test or whatever, you do that middle step and then your answer. So you would put t equals 56 divided by 8, t equals 7. Okay, what about this one? Okay, let's do r over 6 equals 11. R over 6 equals 11. Okay, so what would be our middle step? Annika.
If you do r equals 11 times.
Exactly. This is division. Remember, this is r divided by 6. Now, remember I told you that this sign for multiplication is going to start to go away because you have x's in problems. So we're going to put a little dot, okay, and that's multiply. So 11 times 6. So r equals 11 times 6 is our middle step. And so our answer would be, what? What is 11 times 6, Hannah? 66. And the cool thing about equations, you can always take your answer and put it back in for your letter and make sure it works. So if you put 66, so if you find out your answer is 66, you can put it back in here and see if it works. 66 divided by 6 is 11. So you can always double check your answer. Okay, let's look at this next one. You're going to have to think back to something we did first semester to answer this one. Okay, 1/4 v. 1/4 v equals 5. Okay, we know that that's multiply because it's a number and a variable. So we know that's multiply. So our middle step is v equals 5, what? If this is multiply, okay, what happens when that comes over? I need to bring it over. Annika.
You have to divide.
We have to divide. Okay, now we're dividing by a fraction. Remember, when dividing by fractions, here's a tip, keep, change, flip. So what would we do to get this answer if we have 5 divided by 1/4? Keep, change, flip. Okay, so what do we get when we have 5 divided by 1/4? Lucas?
20 divided by 2. Wait, no. 9 divided by.
Times and times.
Oh, 20 divided by 1.
Or just 20?
Or
20 over 1 is 20. The answer is 20. Okay, remember, it's 5 times 4 is 20, 1 times 1 is 1, 20 over 1 is 20. And the answer would be 20. Okay, now let's look at a two-step equation. So let's go back to your composition book and we're going to put an example of a two-step equation. Okay, a two-step equation. Okay, let's try, we'll put this as our example. Okay, 2m minus 9 equals 7. 2m minus 9 equals 7. Okay, so we are going to do the same thing we did with a one step, except for we're going to have two steps. All right, so in this equation, we have two things that need to go over. We have a 2 that needs to go over there, and we have this 9 that's being subtracted. It needs to go over there too. Okay, what you want to take over first is the thing that's not attached to the variable. This is attached to the variable. It's attached. So that's going to go over last. So what we want to take over first is this 9 that's being subtracted. So what's going to happen when I take that 9 that's being subtracted? What's going to happen when I take it over to the other side? Lucas?
You're gonna add 9?
We're going to add 9. So we're going to have 2m equals 7 plus 9. So all we're doing right now is getting that minus 9 that's got to go over. And then we solve 7 plus 9. So what do we get when we add 7 and 9 together? Annika? 16. Okay, now I have a one-step equation. The 2's got to go over, and right now it's being multiplied. So what's going to happen when I take that 2 and I take it over to the other side? What's going to happen to it? Hannah? We're going to divide. And Hannah, what is 16 divided by 2? 8. Okay, and again, you can, the thing that's cool about equations is you're not ever going to have to guess, did I get it right or not? Let's take the 8 and let's put it back up into the equation. So put the 8 back up in here. That's 8 times 2, which is 16. Take away 9, which is 7. So we know we got it right. So if you take it and you plug it back in and it works, you know your answer is right. So you don't even have to guess, did I get it right or not? Okay, let's go to your whiteboard and we're going to try some two-step equations. Okay, let's do 5x plus 5 equals 45. Okay, 5x plus 5 equals 45. Okay, so we have two 5's that need to go over. But which one's going over first? Is this one going over first, or is this one going over first? Which one's going to go over first? Macy.
The middle one.
Yeah, the plus 5, because it's not attached to the variable. So we're just going to move everything over. 5x equals 45. And then Macy, what happens is this is it's being added. What happens when I bring it over?
Subtract it.
We're going to subtract it. Okay, and then we have to solve 45 minus 5. So what would we get for 45 minus 5? Hannah?
40.
40. So we're going to have 5x equals 40. Okay, now we have a one-step equation. The 5's being multiplied. So what's going to happen when I take it over to the other side? Annika?
We're gonna have to divide.
We're going to divide. So we're going to have x equals 40 divided by 5. And then all we have to do is answer what is 40 divided by 5. Lucas? 8. Okay, and again, if we're not sure if we got it right, let's go back and plug it in and see. So we're saying that x is 8. So let's see if we're right. 5 times 8, 40, add 5, 45, we got it right. Okay, so they self-check themselves. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try k over 2 minus 5 equals 7. Okay, so we have a 2 and a 5 that both need to go over to the other side. So what's going to go over first? Annika?
Minus 5.
The subtracted 5. So we're going to have k over 2 equals 7. What, Annika?
7 plus 5.
The 5 has to become a plus. Okay? And next we need to solve what is 7 plus 5. So Hannah, what do we get when we add 7 and 5? 12. So we're going to have k over 2 equals 12. Okay, now we have a one step. We have k divided by 2 equals 12. The 2 needs to go over. So what's going to happen when it goes over? The opposite needs to happen. Annika?
And we have to multiply.
Right, so we're going to have k equals 12 times 2. And then we just solve 12 times 2. And so what would 12 times 2 be? Hannah? 24. Okay? And then, if we want to make sure we're right, we're saying k is 24. We can go back and check it. So we put 24 in. We get 24 divided by 2, which is 12, minus 5, which is 7. Okay? And this is the way you will always solve equations. So even when you're older and you have tons of different things over here that need to go over, you keep doing the same thing. You just, every time you move something over, you have to do the opposite to it. Okay, let's try 4n plus 7 equals 15. Okay, so what's our first step going to be? Annika.
Bringing plus 7 down.
Right, our middle, we'll just gotta tell me what our middle step's gonna be. 4n equals,
Plus 7.
Eight.
Sorry.
give me a whole middle step.
15 minus 7.
4n equals 15 minus 7. Exactly. That's a plus 7. We gotta bring it over and subtract it. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to solve 15 minus 7. Lucas.
8.
8. So our last thing to do is we have 4n equals 8. And we need the 4 to go to the other side. So what's going to happen when I take the 4 over to the other side, Annika?
And we're going to divide 8 by 4.
We're going to have n equals 8 divided by 4. And what do we get, Annika?
You'll get 2.
2. Okay, and again, if we're not sure we got it right, we can go back and put it in. So we say 4 times 2, that's 8. Add 7, that's 15. So we got it right. Okay, keep out your